Good morning. Welcome to the Pitchline Chronicles. It is good to be back from the holiday break a little bit. Took a couple of days off. One that did not take that much of a break was Brian Cashman. He did it. We did find out that Esteban Florial has been traded, and he's a guy that we've talked on the show since its inception. We were we were rooting for him. We were wondering what to do with him. He never talked about how he never really got a fair shot. But he is now going on to Cleveland for a pitcher, Morris, and we're going to try to figure out where he's going to fit in going forward into the season. But guys, Merry Christmas to everybody again. Hope everybody did enjoy the holidays with their family. How are we all feeling this morning?
I'm ready for a big move.
Yes.
I need a pitcher. Morris is fine for a guy like Florial. You're not going to use him, get rid of him, get something back for him. Considering we cut him last year and he fell back into our lap, we didn't use him. We got a pitcher for him. It's going to add to our depth. But I want a bigger move. That's my my resolution for the Yankees.
So the first thing I want to say is Merry Christmas to everyone who's watching and is going to watch and click the link. So a big Merry Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas. And big, I think, these kind of times, shows the importance of family, and not just your blood, but also extended family, like my Pinstripe Chronicles family here.
Yes.
And the people that tune in. It's a great little community, and yeah. So I just wanted to say that I'm thankful for all you guys, and I wish you all like a safe and happy New Year when it comes. As for the deal, oh man, mixed feelings. I think it's actually pretty good for where we were. Florial had no room on the roster. We've got a ton of outfielders now. We're pretty stacked in the outfield department, which is a nice improvement considering where we were 12 months ago. So that's fine for what we got. I don't mind the deal. It's just that I got mixed feelings because I think we didn't utilize Florial the way we should have. I think he should have been starting last year. You could make the argument that he probably should have been the starting left fielder, but even when Aaron Judge went down, he definitely should have been the first name called up when Aaron Judge went down. That's 100% fact. And as it's proven, that should have been the way it turned out because he played very, very well. When we finally gave him a chance, he played great. I've always liked Florial. I think Florial had the tools that could have been developed and should have been developed. We're talking about a guy that plays excellent outfield, that has speed, and a decent bat. There was really no reason not to give him a chance. And it just looked like empty excuses, especially considering the names that we used instead, like Willie Calhoun. I mean, come on. It's just, it's really hard to understand their decision-making. Franchi Cordero couldn't hit an off-speed pitch if his life depended on it. And certainly couldn't play the outfield. I know that I'd be a better outfielder than Franchi Cordero in my pajamas. You know what I mean? So it's just like it's hard to understand why they had such little time for Florial. But we've already been through this most of the podcast last year, so there's no point going over it again. But they misutilized him. I don't think they utilized him correctly. But hey, it's better than doing what we did with Andujar and Clint Frazier, DFAing for nothing. At least we got a decent deal out of it. We got someone that we have years of control with and could be a spot starter for us. He's pitched a couple of innings against us in the ALDS and did well and shut us down, in fact. So I think we got a decent arm, and considering considering how Florial had no options left, right, and this guy has a ton of options left. And he's a pitcher, and we're overstocked in outfield. It's a no-brainer deal. So purely in terms of on paper, I actually like the deal. So Cashman did a decent job over Christmas for us. So salute for that. But yeah, it's a shame. Mixed feelings because I've always liked Florial, and I wish Florial all the best in Cleveland. I hope he fulfills his potential there.
Chris, give us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree with what Donna was saying. Cashman turns nothing into something, and for that, we give him kudos. I was listening to a podcast this morning of some fantasy guru friends of mine, and they were talking about the Florial deal, and they had seen Florial at the Arizona Fall League and just said they didn't see anything special about Florial, that the Yankees reportedly had done nothing with him, but they thought that there was no reason why they should have. He had nothing special, particularly special to offer one way or another. I don't know. Florial, whether he got a chance or didn't get a chance, it's now water under the bridge, and it's a good for the Yankees that they are able to improve, even on a depth move, to improve the team with when they would have got nothing for him earlier. So,
yeah, I think it's if you're able to, there was no room left at the end for Florial. The fact that they were able to be proactive enough to move him rather than lose him, like Donald was saying, that they got pitching depth back, because that's something that every team is always looking for, is depth. And I think that a pitcher like Morris, he's got a lot of control. He's still fresh. He hasn't. He still is considered rookie, so he hasn't. There's still a lot of work to be done with him, and we have a lot of faith in Matt Blake with pitching. So I could expect some good things from him. I think he can be one of those guys that were like, wow, almost like a Holmes before they tried forcing him into the closer role, where he was one of those pitchers. You're like, okay, he might not have had the best numbers where he was, but look at him now. That could be one of those. Do you think it's also is this minor league edition to bring up somebody like a Warren or Luis Heel, and just keep the minor leagues replenished?
I think it's strictly depth, because we know we lost 10 pitchers with trades in the Rule 5 draft, so it shouldn't be looked at as anything special. Like, it's not like he's the fifth starter or anything like that. He might make the bullpen out of the spring, but I think they want to use him as a starting pitching option, because right now our options are limited. I'm assuming we're going to get at least one starting pitcher, whether it's a free agent or a trade, but then you kind of look at him as maybe your sixth or seventh option. Will Warren's still on the 40-man roster, so he has to earn that spot, and he will, unless they trade him, which I don't know if they're going to do or not. But just give us options, because we lost, obviously. Drew Thorpe was a guy that could have been called up this year. Brito and Vasquez went. We know Michael King went. Mitch Spence, a bunch of these other guys that went in the Rule 5 draft. Richard Fitz in the Verdugo trade. So it's one of those moves where you add a little bit of a depth arm. They've added a few guys on minor league deals as well. So there'll be competition out of the spring, and he's got two options. He actually had a pretty solid year in 2022, and he got roughed up a little bit last year, but only in like 7 games. So you can't look too much into it. I trust Matt Blake, and these are the moves that Brian Cashman excels at, because he got Wandy Peralta from Mike Talkman, and Wandy Peralta was fantastic. Yeah. He always gets these kind of arms. You're like, who the hell is this guy? And next thing you know, he's throwing an important inning for the Yankees in like the middle of August or September. So I don't know if that's going to be the case with him, but we know the Yankees' history with injuries, especially in a long season. It would not surprise me if he makes a couple of starts down the line at some point this year. So the Scranton Shuttle is probably going to be calling his name this year, and that's fine, because we need more of those guys that we can call upon to fill in.
Yeah, pitching depth is always something that's it's very important when constructing a roster, because arms go down, arms get tired, arms get traded, because everybody's I think pitchers get moved more than anybody. We see that year in, year out. Improving the depth is something I'm always in favor of, which is why I'm like, all right, I was a big Florial fan, but hey, it's time to move on. There's new people. We have, Spencer Jones, Dominguez, Pereira's still on the team. So the outfield depth is there. So Florial unfortunately just became expendable. And I hope that he finds success where he go, in Cleveland. It wasn't like he did anything wrong. We've all said it. We don't have to keep going around the same road, but he just never got a fair shot. Hopefully Cleveland gives it to him because he deserves it. He's like we said, he's a solid defensive player. His speed on the bases was good. I think he's going to be more productive than destructive on a roster. So with the pitching, though, there are still a lot of question marks about what the rotation is going to look like. I think that's still the one thing that Cashman needs to stay on point with. The front office has been doing very good so far with who they're acquiring, who they're moving from. That they're being very calculated about it. What are you expecting to see from Rodon? Like, he's the other big question mark.
I'm glad you brought him up because he's actually the key to the offseason. So the reason to jump in there is because I think that he's actually the key. If the Yankees view him as the 1B, it means that they don't need to overpay for Blake Snell or Montgomery in a free agency, for instance. And it doesn't mean, and then it would also mean that they wouldn't need to overpay in a trade for instance, a Dylan Cease or other options. They could view him as the number 2 starter, and then they could look for more middle rotation arms, like an Imanaga, for instance. I was looking a little bit more into Imanaga, and I think I dismissed him a little bit too early the last time. He does have a lot of strikeouts, and even though he's got a mid-90s fastball, he's got a really nice splitter that I think is a major league ready pitch. It's a swing and miss pitch, his splitter. So they could look into Imanaga as a mid-rotation option if they believe that Rodon is going to be healthy enough to be our 1B. We've paid him to be the 1B. Is he healthy enough? So there's really, I think he is the key. If the Yankees feel that he still has 1B in him, then I think the Yankees will look for more affordable options. If not, then they're going to be like, right, well, he's going to be a good 3. We need to go all in on a 2. And that would be where the bigger names come in, as we've discussed prior. So good point, Tats. I think he is the key to this offseason, rest of this offseason.
Yeah, Rob, before we get your take on it, just everybody in the chat, what's going on, everybody? Enjoying seeing the comments scrolling through. If you haven't already, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that sub button. This channel is growing rapidly, and it's all thanks to you guys enjoying our content, hitting the likes, subbing, sharing this out. So keep on doing what you're doing. Rob, what are your thoughts on Rodon?
I feel like I'm in a minority of fans at this point because it feels like a lot of people are giving up on him after one season, and people forget how good he was for 2 years in San Francisco. So I think he has the ability to be that 1B. They're paying him to be. He kind of has to be. And I said this a few weeks ago, even if we got Yamamoto, that he was the key to all this, because if he had a bounce back year, that 1, 2, 3 would have been absolutely deadly of Cole, Yamamoto, and Rodon. So if Rodon just pitches healthy, he's going to be better. He's not going to have a 7 ERA or whatever it was last year. That's just not going to happen. He's too good for that. Even if his numbers jump up a little bit, he's like a mid-3 guy. That's fine for your number 2, because what we had last year was an absolute abomination outside of Garrett Cole. The Yankees need Carlos Rodon to be the guy they paid $26 million for a year. I think he's getting 26, 27, whatever it may be. He's getting a lot of money is the case, is the point I'm trying to make, and he needs to pitch like it. And I think he has that mentality that he needs to, I think he's a little bit kind of like, all right, they're trying to go get this other guy that's never pitched an inning here. They're willing to give him more than me. maybe he has a little chip on his shoulder now because people are starting to doubt him after one injury-plagued season. So if he goes out there and pitches like it, he could be lights out for us. I think he's really good, and I think he's got that ability. And Donald's right. There are options out there that are going to be cheaper that can be the middle of the rotation kind of arms we're looking for. I love Edward Cabrera from Miami. I've been watching film on him. I've been studying like his numbers and his metrics, everything but his walk rate is exceptional. And I think Matt Blake could fix that. I would love to get him because I don't think it would cost too much. And he's got 5 years of control. That's the kind of arm Cashman loves to get. I like Imanaga. The one thing that scares me with him is his fly ball rate. I think he would get tattooed in Yankee Stadium, but if he can keep the ball on the ground, that would be an improvement. I just don't think we get 3 lefties. I don't think we have 3 lefties in the rotation because I don't see them moving Nestor Cortez from the rotation unless they trade him. But Imanaga is an option. They've been linked to him. Obviously, Montgomery, if they want to pay a little more money, they can bring him back, another lefty. All the options in free agency outside of like Montas and Giolito are left-handed guys. So you got to wonder what they're going to do. If they add another lefty, do they trade Nestor? So there's so many like juggling parts here. I think they're going to look for a trade. I think it has to be via trade. And Cabrera makes a lot of sense for them. And unless they want to overpay for a guy like Cease or Burns, I don't think they will. And then maybe you take a shot on Shane Bieber if Cleveland's not asking for too much for him. So there are options out there, something we've been talking about, but Rodon is the key. Absolutely. Donald is 100% right. If Rodon is better this year, if he's back to what he was in San Francisco, we don't have to worry about too much because Colin Rodon is deadly. And that's what we were talking about going into the last year. It's like there aren't many 1-2 punches that are better than that. Yankees need Carlos Rodon to be the guy they paid for.
Chris, what's your thoughts on Rodon?
Well, you'd certainly need a crystal ball to see how Rodon will bounce back, obviously. He seemed also out of shape. I don't know if that was part of the equation last season, and seemed determined when he left at the end of the season to get right. But I mean, there doesn't seem to be any urgency right now. Once Yamamoto went by the wayside, it seems like the Yankees ran out of steam in pursuing starting pitching for the moment, and I'm eager to see what the next move is. We should have expected that it would be something like Morris, I guess, sort of a low key move. But the big move is still to be made, and everything depends on that. I kind of hate the idea of if Rodon does X or if Rodon does Y, because you don't build championships on ifs and wishes. But at the same time, you have no guarantee when you trade or bring in a free agent either. So whether Rodon is a number 2 or a number 3 is not relevant. I don't care what number he is. I still think we need to bring in Monty or maybe Snell is reaching, and I don't know that Snell is the best fit, but I would love to see Monty returning to the fold, so to speak. But again, that's just throwing out there. The Yankees are not. There's no indication right now of what direction they're aiming at.
Yeah, no, there's always those rumors that get thrown around, and we're gonna have some fun with them in a little bit. But with Rodon, I think if you're able, I think the key to Rodon is having a healthy spring training. Get him to the spring training healthy, keep him healthy, and I think we're definitely going to see we're going to see an improved Rodon this year. You see, I'm with Rob. I'm not giving up on him yet at all. I still think he is a big cog in the wheel with the pitching. Because if he's able to be that number 2 starter like we would get, that were hoping for, you don't need the big splash, right? We missed out on the big splash. The water's calm right now, right? Yamamoto, he's a Dodger. It is what it is. We got our frustrations out. We move forward. Rodon he's going to be so important to this rotation that he can either make or break the way everything flows. It's really come down to that at this point.
Yeah, and he was hurt. Like,
Yeah.
NFP just brings it up. He was hurt from the second he got to spring. Like his first spring start hurt his arm. Then it was the back, and then I think he had a hamstring thing. Like, I'm sorry, you're gonna pitch with 3 injuries and expect the guy to be a 2.2 ERA guy like behind Garrett Cole. It's not gonna happen. I don't think anybody's gonna pitch successfully with those kind of injuries. Unfortunately, it happened in his first year, and it looked like another Cashman blunder. But he's got 5 more years to try to correct that, and I think if you can get at least 3 really good or good enough seasons out of him over the next 5, you're gonna like it. You're gonna like what you see from him. He's not old. I think he's just over 30. So you get him to he's about 35, 36. It's not the end of the world. And you just hope that he's better because you really don't have any other choice. Like Yamamoto was the guy they wanted. They didn't get him. You have to move on. Rodon is not a terrible fallback option after one rough season. I'm sorry. And if you don't want to overpay in prospects again, because they already gave up quite a bit to get Soto, Grisham, and Verdugo, they might want to hold on to some of these prospects. Now, you can make a move like everyone's tossing Peraza and Pereira into every single trade imaginable now. Just want to make a PSA. Please stop using that trade value website for your trade ideas because they have Juan Soto as like a 22 value. You can trade like Peraza and Pereira for him right now if you wanted to on that website. So let's just, I don't want to see everyone using that site and be like, this is a fair trade. It's really not. But I don't want those two to become the new Andujar and Frazier. I feel like they have to trade those guys now while they still have a little bit of value so you can get something back. I feel like Peraza could get you an Edward Cabrera, maybe Peraza another piece, and maybe Pereira could be part of a trade that you could get Shane Bieber. You know, there's options out there, but I think they have to move them now because they're not going to use them. Pereira's got nowhere to play, and they have shown zero trust in Peraza. So move them, get something for them, and add to the pitching before they become the next Andujar and Frazier where you lose them for nothing. And I fear that's what's going to happen with a guy like Peraza because he has all the potential in the world. They have shown zero willingness to play this kid. And I don't want to see him riding the bench this year. If it was up to me, he'd be starting day 1 at third base and DJ would be on the bench as your rotating utility guy. But Peraza as the utility infielder just doesn't make sense to me. He's like, what, 23? He's got no more options left, so you can't send him down. Try to trade him. See what you can get from him. If you can call Miami and be like, here's Peraza, a catcher, and maybe another piece, you can get Cabrera back and a relief pitcher. They have several relief pitchers that we can use. That makes all the sense in the world. It gives him a chance to play every day. You add to your rotation and your bullpen, and it's kind of a win-win scenario. And he's another guy that they just haven't trusted, much like we talked about Florial earlier. Before it becomes an issue where you potentially lose him for nothing, try to get something for him.
That's a great point. For me, Peraza is the of the names you mentioned, he should be the one that we keep a hold of because I think he has the greater opportunity to break in. I would make Oswaldo Cabrera available in a deal. I'd make Everson Pereira available in a deal for either a high leverage reliever or a mid rotation starter. I mean, obviously Edward Cabrera is a name that I've been paying attention to. It's probably going to cost more than that, but it could be a decent start to a deal. I like what the Marlins offer in a trade. I think it makes all the sense in the world. We have a surplus of bats and they have a surplus of pitching. So you could probably find a trade partner there. But obviously, the first name that I think of that would make the most sense is Montgomery. All it would take is money. And we have money, especially now that we don't need to pay Yamamoto. Now we can pay, say, $160, $170 million over a 5-year deal or something like that for a Montgomery, and I'd be happy with that. I think that would be a good deal. Stick him in the 2 or 3 spot in the rotation. I think we'd be fine. The problem with that is there's a philosophy difference, and the Yankee analytics and Matt Blake. Oh, I give Matt Blake a lot of credit for turning around a lot of arms, but he made a mistake, and so did Mike Fishman with Montgomery. Montgomery needed to have his fastball used a lot more than he did, and they didn't. And Montgomery has been quite open about the fact the Yankees didn't really utilize him correctly. And Another thing that happened when he went to St. Louis and he went to Texas is they did a much better job with his delivery. It's called mirroring, but they managed to work on his delivery to the point where his curve and his sinker looked similar out of his arm, out of his hand. And considering he doesn't have elite spin rate, mirroring helps make him more elusive, and they did a much better job with that. The Yankees just did a bad job with him, really, when you think about it. They had him look like a fifth starter. He had an ERA of about 4 as a Yankee, about 3.98, I believe. And it was a full run less when he went elsewhere. Now, will the Yankees admit that they didn't do a great job with him? I highly doubt that, because I've never really seen that from the Yankees before. Being honest, going, hey, you know what? We should have done better with this guy. But I really hope that they do, because he makes a lot of sense. I go back to Imanaga because I'm seeing a lot of in the chat that, hey, why don't we give Imanaga a look? Here's some things that would make sense with Imanaga. Imanaga, he actually compares a lot to Nasty Nestor, right? Because what's Imanaga's nickname? The pitching philosopher, right? What do we credit Nasty Nestor with? His mind in terms of pitching. None of them have elite stuff, but Imanaga does have a swing and miss splitter. But really, Imanaga is like 5'10", so he's quite small, but he does have a lot of nice movement on his secondary pitches. The Yankees love guys with secondary pitches. So, you think about that, and that kind of makes sense. One thing I love about Imanaga is he never walks anybody. He averages about 1 walk per 9 innings. He just doesn't walk guys. And his 174 strikeouts last year is 5 more than Yamamoto. So he strikes out a lot of people. So you're looking at about an 8 or 9 strikeout to walk ratio. So those are things in his favor, and plus his 270, 280 ERA is very good. The one thing, and Rob Braitley points this out, is he's a fly ball guy. He gave up 17 home runs in Japan. 17. And they do not have like a quarter of the hitters that are available in the majors, power hitters. They just don't have that much power in the Japanese league. And he gave up 17 home runs, so you could probably double that when he goes to the majors. So that's one of the major downsides. And then obviously you have to also think about the posting fee and what's going to go to the team in Japan that he played for, probably 20%, I believe. Those are the drawbacks. So it looks like he'd probably be a 4th starter, a solid one at that, 5th maybe, solid 4th, 5th starter. But I certainly I'm not dismissing that name. I think it's worth considering. Those names that I mentioned, I think Montgomery should be like one of our priorities. From what I hear, I think even Boston are a little bit afraid of his market now. So the Yankees could go all in if they wanted to. That makes sense, because then it means that we could keep a hold of our trade assets if we can, and keep it for a bigger deal, maybe at the deadline if needed. But I would like those options. I think that makes sense. Otherwise, I think the Marlins make a ton of sense, as Rob's got Edward Cabrera, not by coincidence, on his name. I think that's something that we should be paying attention to as an option. But yeah, those are some of the names that I've been looking into myself. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think you want Imagama, so you could hear me mispronounce it over and over again all year.
Well, they called him Mark the last time. We can't do any work.
If we get Edwin Cabrera, that's another Cabrera, so I can really get now. It'll really confuse me because between Oswald and Oswaldo, and this is gonna be a fun season with all these names I got to figure out. But I want to take a quick pause and because we have some comments from people with us for the first time. So I want to bring up Dennis Breezy's comment here. Dennis, welcome to the Pitchside Chronicles. Hope you're enjoying the show. We need left-handed pitchers when we play against left-handed teams like the Dodgers. You brought up that point when we were talking, about the pitching depth. With Rodon, that's the lefty that's that power that's that bulldog lefty that we need. I think that the lefty options like a Montgomery, they're there. The options are there, and I agree because the Dodgers they're building up a powerhouse, and they're putting a big target on their backs. So the left-handed pitching balance, especially at Yankee Stadium, is going to be very important. So we'll have to wait and see how everything plays out. What do you guys think about having more of a dominant left-handed rotation as opposed to a right-handed rotation? Because my thoughts just completely went away.
Yeah, I know.
But you froze for a second.
A little bit too much eggnog there in your.
Not enough coffee.
I don't want three lefties in the rotation. I still trust Nestor Cortez. I mean, I don't want to dismiss him. Again, he was also pitching hurt last year, and he was good for 4 innings and then got roughed up in the 5th for whatever reason. It's just like maybe he got figured out third turn through the order. If he's able to get to the 5 innings per start this year, you're going to take that from a number 5 starter. I don't want to put him in the bullpen because I don't feel like he's going to really serve too much of a purpose unless you move him in a trade and you sign Montgomery or Imanaga, then that would make sense. But not many teams go with 3 lefties in the rotation. We need another lefty in the bullpen, that's for sure, because we only have one. And I know they can use Edgar Barclay. I don't want to see Nick Ramirez out there again. That's the white flag pitcher. And Wandy's still a free agent. They can go after him. There's several players, like I mentioned, the Marlins. They have left-handed relievers. If they make a trade with the White Sox, Crochet's could be available for the right price. So I want more lefties in the bullpen than I do as another starter because I still trust Nestor. Now, if they decide Montgomery's their guy and they want to bring him back, or if it's Imanaga or Blake Snell, and they can move Nestor Cortez in a separate deal, then maybe you go ahead and do that. But I don't want to forget what Nestor Cortez was 2 years ago. He was an all-star. Mm-hmm. He was an all-star pitcher, and he was really good. And I don't want to lose trust in guys after one rough season. Because then if that's the case, then if anyone has just one, like Garrett Cole, we could have got rid of him 2 years ago because he wasn't that good in the regular season, remember? And everyone was like, oh, he's not worth it. And then he was
gives up too many home runs. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he was lights out in the playoffs and you're like, oh, forget about it. So I don't want to give up on players after one injury plagued season. And if Nestor has another bad year, then you can come back to this episode and be like, you were wrong. But I still don't think the Yankees are ready to give up on Nestor Cortez either.
Rob, you like Edward Cabrera as an option. Now we're talking about a 25-year-old with a WAR of just under 2, but an ERA of about 4.20. But 118 strikeouts in 99 innings is good. Can you tell me what you think about Cabrera as an option and why you think that he has upside and can lower his ERA if he was in the American League as opposed to the National League? Because 420 is pretty high, but talking about a 25-year-old with a lot of nice intangibles and a lot of good pitches in his arsenal. What do you think, Rob?
He just has walk issues to me, and I feel like Matt Blake can fix that because he throws a power sinker, and Matt Blake is probably falling in love with him already just by knowing that he throws a sinker, and everything kind of checks out. Like you look at where he's in the percentiles, like his expected batting average is high. Like he kind of gets a little bit unlucky, and he's also got 5 years of control. So you have plenty of time to turn this guy into a weapon, a real weapon. And he could be the guy that the Yankees go and get, and it wouldn't cost you an arm and a leg to get him. If you can move a Peraza for him, I don't think many people would be like, oh, what are you doing? Because if Peraza's not going to start, the Marlins have a need for bats and infielders specifically. We have a need for pitching. they get a controllable infielder, we get a controllable pitcher. It might not be a 1-for-1 swap. There could be other moving parts, but I feel like that makes sense. The Marlins need bats, and they're going to use their pitching surplus to get that.
Yeah.
The Mariners are in a similar position where they might have to move a pitcher in order to get some offense. But if you can do that with the Marlins, I think the Gleyber Torres ship has sailed. But Cabrera he screams a guy that needs another shot. Like his ground ball percentage is really good as well. And we know that's going to play well in Yankee Stadium. If he throws that sinker a little bit more, which by the way, the Yankees actually did have Montgomery throwing that sinker a lot more than the St. Louis did. And it was that mirroring that you brought up, the tunneling and the mirroring that really helped him out in Texas, because Texas had him throwing the sinker more. St. Louis kind of scrapped it, and he got tagged a little bit against the good teams. When he went to Texas, they threw that sinker more, and he mixed in that fastball with the tunneling, and that's really where he took off. So the Yankees kind of had him on the right track. They just didn't fully utilize his stuff. But I feel like Cabrera would just be a guy that if you plug him into that number 4 spot maybe. You have Cole, Rodon, maybe Schmidt's your number 3. I don't know how they're going to, because they go by matchups, but Cabrera could easily be, with the potential that he has, like a number 3 starter. Like he's got the stuff. He throws heat. He's got good breaking stuff. Everything checks out. He just needs to work on that command.
How high is his fastball?
I think it's like upper 90s. Let me see. About 90. He averages 96 on the fastball.
Okay, that's good.
So we can get it up there to about 97, 98.
With a 96 sinker, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's more about, the command of the pitches and the velocity. I'm a big proponent on that. I don't look at just, going just off of how fast they can throw it really doesn't do the pitcher any justice.
Yeah, but that's why I was asking, like, how hard his sinker is.
Yeah.
If you're looking at from a batter's point of view, it may look like a fastball when it's coming to you, but then it'll dramatically sink because it's the relatively same velocity. If there is good mirroring and tunneling involved, so that's kind of interesting. I like what I see of Edward Cabrera. I've been doing some research on him, and I think he's someone that we should pay attention to. I just don't want anybody's got who'd be mad about trading Peraza. And that would be me. I'd be really mad if I would take Peraza. He's my guy. So, but anybody else other than Peraza, no.
Yeah, let's leave him out of this today. We're actually having a good time. Even Chris knows who we're talking about. But Chris, what's your thoughts on the it's just a perfect matchup between the Marlins and the Yankees. They want to get rid of some, they're looking to move their surplus pitching. We're looking to move some surplus infielders, and we're both looking for what each other has.
Right. Yeah, I say let's do it. I mean, get Cashman's ear, make it happen. The nothing's happening at the moment. There seems to be no feeling of urgency anymore. And maybe that's just across the league, and it's also holiday week.
Mm-hmm.
Things hopefully will pick up as we get, maybe past the new year. I hate to wait that long for moves, but no, Rob's right on target there. It's great to go outside of the comfort zone of the Yankees and to pick the teams, pick off a pitcher from the Marlins that other teams aren't maybe looking at.
Let's talk about Yariel Rodriguez, because again, a lot of chat in the chat on Mr. Yariel Rodriguez, international free agent. A bunch of teams are interested in him to be a back end of a rotation starter. Who's got any information on Yariel Rodriguez?
Should ask NFE, because he's been talking about in the entire chat. Yeah. So maybe NFE can fill us in the comments here, because I don't know too much about him.
I don't know too much.
I did some research on him yesterday, and it seems like I don't think he pitched in 2023, did he? Or 20? He's. I don't think he's pitched recently. He was injured or something. I wonder if
no, you're right. You're right. He didn't pitch last year.
Can give us some information about that.
His fastball can reach 100. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
And then he's like you said, NFE saying he's got the splitter, the curveball. The curveball is such an underrated off-speed pitch. That could be that could be filthy deceptive. I like pitches with a curveball. What's going on, Damian? They said he pitched in Japan.
You
He
did.
pitched, yeah.
Yeah.
His last season apparently was 2022, according to Baseball Reference, and he had a 1.15 ERA. The year before that was a 1.64. So he's an international free agent. It wouldn't cost you much to bring him in. I mean, NFE's been screaming his name the entire off season, so I'm sure he's got a ton of insight on him. And if that's the case, then go get him. I trust NFE's insight there.
Yeah.
And the Yankees love to do that as well, especially for a guy that won't cost you too much. Maybe $1 million tops in international spending money. We still don't know about Roki Sasaki yet. I don't see that happening. So
No.
I mean, why not add to the bullpen depth? Go get him.
Yeah, NFE said he may have put a video out on him yesterday on the Strike Zone channel.
Okay.
So we'll have to check that out. Do our
Check that
research
out.
through NFE. And if you're not,
I mean, he did impress in his tryout with more than 15 MLB teams watching. And this is on Twitter back in October. Cuban ace Yariel Rodriguez impressed yesterday in his first tryout with more than 15 MLB teams watching. In the Dominican Republic, after 6 months without active play, the speed, pitch movement, and spin rate are all there. His fastball topped off about 96 miles per hour with a 25.86 spin rate, and his slider had a spin rate of 2,900, which is pretty nice, and an 85 mile an hour slider, 76 mile an hour curve, 89 mile an hour splitter, so that's decent, and an 86 mile an hour changeup. So looks like he's got decent velocity and decent spin rate. I like the look of his spin rate, especially in his slider. So it's something to pay attention to. If you all want to check that out, I think it's at Francis Romero FR was the Twitter handle to check out. But yeah, so he impressed a bunch of teams and decent velocity. You can mix that up with as NFP says, the spin rate is what stood out to scouts. Yeah, I could see that. The velocity is fine, but it's all about that spin rate, as you could see with that slider. But his name is being dropped around a lot. There's a bunch of teams that are keeping an eye on him. If there was 15 teams that were impressed by him, then you could see a market growing for him in January. And I agree with Chris. I think you're not going to see much until the first week of January. You'll start to see a little bit more movement because the urgency isn't necessarily there now that Yamamoto has signed up. Now there's a little bit more time that you could take with the remaining options.
It's interesting though, right? Because what happened yesterday, Kiermaier signed. There's still some Bellinger's still unsigned. Montgomery, Snell, who's Matt Chapman's still available. There's still some pretty big names out there. A lot of the relief pitchers are still available. Hader, and I know who has been on the Hader train for quite some time. It's kind of surprising to me, though. This is what my issue with baseball's offseason. I kind of wish they'd implement something like the NBA and NFL do, because the free agent frenzy is always so fun. Because you get that first 2 days where it's just constant signings, who's going where. Because again, baseball's offseason starts immediately after the World Series. You have the exclusive rights free negotiations and all that stuff. Then you got to organize your 40-man. Who's going to be eligible for the Rule 5? Then you get to the winter meetings where 1 or 2 moves happen. It's we're about to get to 2024 and some top names once again have yet to be signed. I kind of wish we would find a way to do something about that. I know players want to take their time and agents can be difficult, like Scott Boras, but
yep.
It's weird to me. How does Bellinger not have a market? How does Montgomery not have a market? How much could he be asking for? How does the NL Cy Young not have a new home yet? These are some weird
ridiculous
things.
There's so many ways that MLB can fix how their offseason is managed. Do you have make a phase 1 where that's leading up to the winter meetings, because that's usually when we see a lot of good movement. there needs to be another phase, but there's got to be a cutoff. I think that's the problem. There's no, here's where, off-season signings start, here's where they end. I think once you get to a certain plateau, once you get past a certain date on the calendar, that has to limit, how negotiations can go. They have to really do something. Because it really gets, it's ridiculous. You could be so, the thought that, and I don't think it's really never happened. When you get like a guy like Blake Snell, there's a possibility that he's not signed until spring training. We saw that it almost got to that point with Harper and Machado. Pitchers and catchers are reporting, and they still didn't have a team. Like that's how ridiculous it gets. There's got to be a way to fix this. It's really ridiculous.
He's looking for a general contract according to Brad. Montgomery isn't worth 160 to over 6 years, according to Dennis. Don't forget the value of someone who's incredibly durable. Montgomery is incredibly durable. And don't forget about the value of having someone who helped win a World Series for the Texas Rangers of all teams. So, again, you look at that, you think, hey, if you're paying $325 million to a guy who's never pitched, and you're worried about matching Rodon's contract with a Jordan Montgomery, well, Rodon might have better stuff, but he's hurt a lot. And you don't know what you're going to get from him 1 year to the next. Montgomery, it's reliable.
I was saying, has he ever been on the IL?
Yeah, he had Tommy John.
He did have, but once he recovered, he was pretty durable.
Yeah, but we
I
can't.
don't recall hearing about any major setbacks with Montgomery with that.
It took him a little bit to come back from it because when he first came back, I think he barely pitched in 2019, obviously, and then 2020 he looked bad. But then the last couple of years, he has been a lot more durable, so he has bounced back from it. Some pitchers do come back from it better than others. But Rodon pitched a couple of years straight with no problems after Tommy John. This year was the back and a hamstring, and so
backs are a bitch when they're healing.
Yeah, exactly. It's not ideal with a pitcher.
Right,
back injury is not good with a pitcher. Montgomery's been quite reliable the last 3 years. So
I think that's a very fair statement, because he has been. It's the same thing. That's why it was driving me crazy when everybody wanted to just dump Torres. And I'm not trying to jump down that rabbit hole, but the players that were like, we need to move on, are the players that have been the most durable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of it's kind of dickish, It's just we see a shiny new object, so we don't need you around anymore.
Yeah.
It does suck, but say like with Cortez now, we don't know what he's going to return as, and the teams are showing an interest in him. Should the Yankees entertain that? There's been a lot of trade rumors that have been going around. The one that struck me, and I was hanging out with the Morning Brew yesterday.
Shout out to the Morning Brew.
And they were talking about the possibility, because it was rumored, but nothing confirmed, nothing backed up on it. It's just pure speculation. Want to get that cleared out of the way. Seattle might be putting Castillo on the market.
Oh, God, no.
If that actually comes to, because I'm like, I could forget, Bieber and Class A, the Dodgers are being linked to them. Jesus Christ, what else can they do to us? But it's almost like, I think the Dodgers are watching our podcast, because every player that we've talked about that the Yankees would be a perfect fit for, they're like, no, we're going to go get him. But with Castillo, that one's interesting. If that's actually, if it turns out to be legitimate rumor.
Oh, the asking price would be astronomical. He's
Yeah.
got 5 years at a very friendly contract, and he's still really good. They gave up a lot for him. They asked for a lot more back. And before anyone starts saying, well, his value on the website is lower, I don't care. I don't care. You ain't getting him for Peraza and Pereira. You're going to have to give up.
No, this is going to be a hurtful trade.
Yeah,
You know,
it'll
like
be
the Soto
those
were.
two on top of a Chase Hampton, and maybe you have to include Spencer Jones in that trade because they need offense desperately. They need offense, so that's the only reason why. Yeah, it's only speculation. But that's the only reason why someone would entertain that is if they have such a desperate need. Plus, the Yankees don't have an MLB impact bat. They can trade them, and no, they're not going to take Stanton. Like, like before anyone says, well, maybe they can take Stanton's contract. They're not, he's got a no trade. They're not going to take Stanton's contract for Castillo. So I don't see that happening unless they're so desperate and a major bat becomes available via trade that they have to do it. That would be very foolish of them because he's their best pitcher.
Would Gleyber Torres help that trade deal?
I don't know. 1 year of Torres for 5 years of Castillo. That GM in Seattle should be fired if he makes that trade.
Yeah.
I mean,
on the spot.
No, you can't do
I'm a big Castillo fan. And Gleyber is that impact bat that you're talking about. That could help. Could help make the deal work. But I agree with you, man. If you're looking at like trade prices, expect more than it would cost to even get Corbin Burns to get Castillo, in my opinion. I think it would cost even more. And Corbin Burns is, as we all know, phenomenal, but I think it would cost even more to get Castillo. But on paper, I absolutely love Castillo. I went to the Yankees Red Start, and Castillo just destroyed us. I love the guy. He's phenomenal. So good. This stuff is ridiculous. I was really gutted when we didn't get him. And I think the Yankees panicked and made a bad move in response to not getting Castillo. But Castillo was the guy to get, and it would be really good if we could go and land him. But I think it's going to be incredibly expensive. Yeah, but if they take Gleyber Torres, then yeah, let's make it happen.
Yeah, no, FJ, we know it's just a rumor. I just thought it was a fun rumor because we were screaming for them to make a trade for him because he kicked our ass with the Reds. We missed out on the trade. He goes to Seattle, ends up coming back to the Bronx again to pitch with the second team. Kicked our ass again. You know, I'm tired of him kicking our ass. I want him kicking somebody else's ass. So I just thought that a little change of pace with the off-season talk.
Good name. Good suggestion.
Brad brings up, Castillo would cost a fortune, and he has the no trade clause. And I hate no trade clauses. I really do. I'd rather offer 20-year contracts than have a no trade clause. Right? I can't stand them. All right. He won't cut his hair, and Castillo is owed 4 years, $96 million left on that deal.
Fine. That's fine.
We were willing to give how much to an unknown pitcher?
13
a week or so ago?
A season. 30 million. So yeah, that deal for Castillo. And Brad also says the asking price, because Dane, speaking of Dane, I was talking to him the other day on Twitter about the White Sox, and he said he proposed if the Yankees took Moncada back, it would lower the cost to get Dylan Cease. The Moncada still got 1 year, about $14 million left against the luxury tax. He has an option for next year. I wondered if they made that move. As he said, Peraza, Pereira, and like a Clayton Beater, if for Cease and we take back Moncada, would they then flip Torres for Cabrera or something from the Marlins, like Cabrera and Puck? Like I'm kind of wondering if that would be the case. Like if they did that, let's speculate. Let's speculate a little bit here. Let's say they make that move with the White Sox, they get Dylan Cease. Would you then flip Gleyber to Miami for Cabrera and Puck? So you add another starter and another reliever. That could be an option as well. So I mean, Moncada is a downgrade for sure from Gleyber Torres, but he can play third. He's a switch hitter, and you'd move DJ to second, and you'd add two starters and a relief pitcher. It's not the end of the world, but again, you're gonna be sacrificing some offense because Moncada's had injuries and he's not the best hitter in the world, where Glaber has been our best hitter the last couple of seasons outside of Judge. So you kind of wonder. I'll go to Chris because we haven't heard her speak in quite some time.
Well, Castillo is certainly an exciting an idea. That would be, to think of having Cole and Castillo at the top of the order would be a dream come true. It seems unlikely to me, but not impossible, of course. I think there's plenty of other more doable options. But certainly that would make, we're talking building championships, build a championship, go do it. Certainly that would be one way.
Is there any other names? So let's look at the remaining MLB free agents, right? Is there any lower leverage names that jump out as someone that might be worth a flyer as a fifth starter? I'm not advocating for some of these names. I'm just going to list them, right? That's definitely not, for instance, Marcus Stroman. I don't want him. He's obviously a name. There's obviously also Lucas Giolito as another option. There's obviously Frankie Montas. We know about him. Hyungjin Ryu, Michael Lorenzen, Sean Manaea, Mike Clevenger, James Paxton. Any of those?
I used to love Clevenger. Is he not? Has he been having a down time? Because he was an exciting guy at one time.
I think he was hurt,
and then last year was 9-9 with a 3.77 ERA, which is actually decent. 110 strikeouts over 131 innings, 123 WHIP. His career is better than his year last year. Obviously, his career is 16.39 with 3.40 ERA. It's definitely more what I'm looking at. He wasn't missing too many bats last year, but he's someone who when we did the last podcast, we were reading out what one of the MLB scouts was saying. He was saying that Clevenger to the Yankees kind of makes a little bit of sense. For a little bit of upside, he might be someone that may be worth a flyer. So yeah, of those names that I mentioned, which ones kind of jump out at you as maybe a fourth or fifth starter? Obviously, because we talked about Eminaga, it makes sense to talk about other bottom rotation starters such as these guys.
Frankie Montas, he's coming back.
Yeah,
I'm almost like just ready for it to be announced. They wouldn't have gone through all that trouble last year to have him pitch if they didn't want to get something back. They want to try to get something back out of that investment. They gave up a lot to get him. They got an injured pitcher. Cashman admitted it. He said he was wrong, but now he's healthy. They want to give him another shot. It wouldn't cost you much because nobody wants him. Montas is coming back. I would be shocked if he doesn't, but he's not going to be the only move. If they get two out of that group, then that's kind of reeks of desperation. I guess Giolito or Clevenger, maybe Ryu, but again, there's so many question marks there. Like the Mets want Giolito, apparently. They might give him a 2-year deal. I don't know. I think Montas is the best out of that group. Sean Manaea being on that list as well is kind of interesting because we were all asking for the Yankees to trade for him 2 years ago. Yeah, so Rich Hill's out there. We can go get Rich Hill. What is he, 60 years old at this point? Just as old as Neil. I don't know. I get if you're gonna pick from that list, it's very slim pickings. I would take Montas over all of them though. I would.
But I think Giolito could be. Maybe Giolito Matt Blake would be a good combination. He just had a bad year. He's healthy, he's reliable, he's solid, but he didn't have a good year, and especially after he was traded, I think he didn't fare well after that.
Well, that's why
I would Giolito 8-15 with an ERA of just under 5. But 204 strikeouts over 184 innings is pretty nice actually, considering Clevenger had far less strikeouts per 9 innings. So 204 strikeouts over 184 is something you can work from. But the 8 and 15 with an ERA of about 5 is definitely not what you're looking at. It's in his last 7 starts was terrible. 0-1, 7.94 ERA. So he really struggled. But his career is definitely worth paying attention to. His career was much better. Say between 2019 to 2021, he was definitely ERA in the mid threes. So he's only recently kind of blown up in 22 and 23. So yeah, it's something to pay attention to.
Well, I think the problem is, and this is where it gets really muddy. We already have question marks going into the season with players we already have. You know, what's Rodon's season going to be? What's Cortez's season going to be? You know, what kind of season are we going to get out of some of the arms in the bullpen? You know, to go and just start getting bottom, I don't want to say bottom barrel because they're professional baseball players. You know, they can pitch a lot better than I can. But I think that if you're going to take a gamble on Montas, if you're going to take a gamble on Giolito, if you're going to take a gamble on Clevenger or any of those guys, that's a lot of question marks in your rotation behind Cole. And it does not. That makes me very nervous because if one of those guys falls apart, it's just going to become it's just going to be a mess. And
this is why I want Montgomery as my number one option, because I know that he's going to make it to start every 5 days and he's going to give you a good start. That's why I'm on the Montgomery train.
The one that I would take, the one that I would still take a gamble on, right? And this is, I can't believe I'm saying this. I would try to give, you know, a 1 year prove it deal to Montas. I think if you can get a 1 year prove it deal, and if he's, you know, if he does it for you, he does it. If not, you know, it's low risk, high reward.
Mm-hmm. I think Cashman's on that train too, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. And Jonathan, I think Rodriguez is going to be more of a relief pitcher because he hasn't started in a couple of years. His last 2 years, I think he's pitched like 100 some odd games out of the bullpen. So he's more of a bullpen arm. But look, if you can get Montas and trade for Cabrera, it's not Yamamoto, right? It's not the splashy, wow, they got the prize free agent, but is it not a better rotation? Yeah, it's still, you're still filling a need, and you're not breaking the bank to do it. Because Cabrera is still on his rookie deal, not even arbitration yet. And Montas would cost you very little with incentives. It'd be so full of incentives that, like, if he meets any of them, you'd be shocked because he's got nothing to lose. You've got nothing to lose by giving him another chance because he'd just be like your sixth starter. So, I mean, obviously the best choice is to go get Burns or Cease, a guy that's been there, done that. But if they don't want to go crazy and spending more prospects and just kind of trade from your strengths, which we have plenty of bats available now from our farm system, you might want to go and do that. Or you just spend the money. And I wouldn't be opposed to a Montgomery reunion, but 20-something million, I don't know if they want to do that. They're willing to go 30 for a 25-year-old. Are they willing to go 25, 26 for a 30-year-old? They just did it last year with Rodon, and they might be regretting it now. They might be. I don't think they will, but they could be regretting. It's like, shit, 1 year in, we're already kind of like, ugh. So I don't know if they want to do that again for that. That's probably why their markets aren't moving, because Snell and Montgomery are both around the same age, I think, and they might want 6 or 7 years. You're like, well, you're not Garrett Cole type of ace. So do we want to give you that much and have you till you're 37, 38 years old, where Yamamoto's 25. So you're going to give him a decade and be like, you're going to be a free agent again at 35 with an opt-out, which apparently the Yankees are going to give him an opt-out after 5. He would have entered free agency at 30. The Yankees deal was actually really good when Heyman broke it down. But when he said that second part about they didn't think he should get more than Garrett Cole, I didn't believe that for a second. But the Yankees deal they offered Yamamoto was very fair. They were going to give him the most AAV, $200 million in total for 5 years. They had him an opt-out halfway through the contract. It was a very fair offer, but obviously he wanted LA. That's where it all came down to. He wanted the Dodgers. So
it was a great offer. It was an offer designed for, if you want to come here, we're going to pay you. We're going to pay you more than anyone else. It just turned out that he didn't want to come here. But I also agree with Hal Steinbrenner. I wouldn't have paid him more than Garrett Cole. I think it's a bad optic for someone who won US Cy Young to be immediately displaced by somebody who hasn't pitched an inning in the majors. I think it's kind of a bad optic. I'm sure Garrett Cole wouldn't have cared, but I think in terms of optics, I think you kind of want your ace starter to be paid the most in a rotation, and Garrett Cole's our ace. So I don't blame them for not wanting to go over that. And I don't blame them for not wanting to go to 12 years either. But this is the thing. Agents are going to be absolutely rubbing their hands together with glee because these new contracts, one for Yamamoto, one for Ohtani, has now set the market. The market is going to explode now. Now we're looking at deals that are going to be in the 12-year range, 10 to 12-year deal range. And now you're going to look at the other free agents, and as long as they're semi-durable and available to start every 5 days, they are going to get massive contracts now. Like, that's just a fact. And demand is going to outweigh supply. Hence, the money is going to skyrocket. The money is now in for the pitching market in the majors. If you're a free agent, Snell, Montgomery, they're going to get paid. They will get paid. They're going to get paid. And Yamamoto's contract of 12 years, 300 plus million for someone who hasn't pitched an inning, no matter how good he is. As I've mentioned, the pitching philosopher had 5 more strikeouts than he did. So you're going to be looking at massive money now from now on. And it might be more than you're willing to give. You're going to be looking at pitchers going to be paying up till about 38, 39 years old now. And it's going to be the norm. And that's what it is. That's why when somebody reaches free agency, you're lucky if they're in their prime, because you're going to have to pay them a lot more than you might be comfortable with now. If you look at it, we did great with that Garrett Cole contract. That Garrett Cole contract is actually a steal now. When you look at what you're going to look at after the Snell contract's done, Montgomery contract's done, and future free agents are done, you look at Yamamoto's, you're going to be looking at 9 years for Garrett Cole as an absolute steal. It's a steal now, but it's now you're going to look at the future deals that are going to be made over the next couple of years with Yamamoto's contract as a marker and Ohtani's contract as a marker. You're going to be like, damn, we got a good deal there. And if you wanted to add Aaron Judge's contract in there, that's a steal as well now. When you look at Ohtani signing for $700 million, even if the $680 million of it is deferred, it's crazy. What I'm saying is demand's going to outweigh supply in free agency, and you're going to be looking at some crazy deals from now on.
Yeah, Chris, before we wrap it up, give us your thoughts on what Donald was saying with the market and the influx of the money and the years at the same time.
Yeah, it's inevitable. I think he's 100% right on. It's going to be interesting to see the next move that comes down the pike here as we, continue free agency for next year. Just can't wait to see what Snell's going to get in light of what Yamamoto got. So, Donald, I think you're 100% right. And it remains to be seen what it'll be, but it's going to be interesting.
Rob, your final thoughts with the contracts?
These guys deserve to be paid, and I think they will be eventually. Will they get what they're asking for initially? Probably not. They're going to have to come down a little bit on the asking price. But if another 25-year-old free agent hits the market next year, or Corbin Burns, for instance, I think he's just under 30, he's going to get a gigantic contract, especially if he has another season like he did last year. He's going to get paid. But no, he's right. He's absolutely right. Ohtani and now Yamamoto getting all that money, has never pitched an inning in Major League Baseball. Money in Major League Baseball is changing. Like every year it gets higher and higher, and it's just going to continue to get higher. Like I'm more excited to see what Soto's going to get. Soto's contract is going to break records. I think he might get 50 a year, and that'll count against the luxury tax. Like he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, my final take on it. I think gives false hope to the rest of the free agents that are out there, especially the ones that have done it. When you're given, I'm talking more about Yamamoto than Ohtani. Ohtani, I mean, we'll never see a contract like that again. That was a one and only type of deal. Although everything was done within the rules, I don't think that's going to happen ever again with all that deferred money. But with Yamamoto, I think it's really going to cause some proven free agents to be very bitter if they're not getting that type of money. Especially somebody like Snell. Don't forget, he's already got 2 Cy Youngs. So if that's not going to be valued as much as what Yamamoto got, I'd be pissed if that was me. I'd be like, how the hell are you going to give that kind of money to him where I've already proven what I can do twice? I've won one of the most prestigious awards in baseball, right? It's a Cy Young award. Those don't go to just anybody. All right. It's not a technicality, type of award. I mean, you have to battle to get that. And he's done it twice. I'd be pissed if he gets you're not even just like we said, there's not even a market for him. He's a team's he was our plan B, not even a plan A. So I think that it really sets a false narrative amongst the rest of the free agents. And it's going to cause a lot of people to have some hurt feelings. But believe me, it's not like they're going to be crying to pay their bills. So they wanted 15 million and they got 14. Nobody's going to cry for you. I'm not. But it's unfortunately that's the way sports is going. These players, no matter what sport you're in, they're making generational wealth from the get-go. And it's hard to wrap your head around, as all these TV deals, the sponsorships, the marketing, they have all these, TV contracts. I think the TV contracts are going to be the death of sports before the money, that these players are getting paid, because you need 50 million different apps to watch your sport.
True. Good point.
That's we can get into that another day. I think that eventually, the dam is going to break, and it's going to be like a no-win situation for every party involved. Eventually, it's got to stop. It's just getting out of control with what some of these players are making. And if you're earning it, I'm not telling anybody you're not allowed to make a lot of money.
Well, bro, without a salary cap and a salary floor, just look for them to get
salary
floor. That's the thing, man. Because at least in the other sports there is a cap to it. But I agree with you with the apps comment, and I certainly think that it's worth a podcast in itself, talking about making it more available to the average consumer, because I think with an app for Apple Plus, Amazon, Yes Network, and MLB.com,
they're all over the place.
Oh, you need all these apps just to watch your team. Is taking advantage of the people that are loyal.
It'd be cheaper to go back to regular cable.
That's right, regular cable.
And we were going to the apps because the cable got expensive.
That's right.
But we're all paying the same amount of money. How foolish are we? Do you think they were going to lose money?
I agree with you, man. It's certainly worth a podcast in itself, but we don't want to get down that rabbit hole.
No. We are going to be going here. Just want to thank everybody that was in the chat. We did have some new voices in here. Appreciate you all. We tried to get to a lot of your comments. With the way that these discussions have been going, you're not being ignored. But Dennis Breesy, thanks for hanging out with us. Richard Witt, Manstar, appreciate everybody that's been joining us. We're enjoying JT. We've been enjoying some of the new voices in here and your takes. We appreciate you.
To the Blue Jays, 2 years, 15 mil. Bye. Thank you. Goodbye.
no ill will towards IKF.
No.
IKF, I love that. I love that for him.
So, but this is
Yeah, that's actually very good for him. $7.5 million
Yeah.
per year. It's a decent,
good for him.
decent contract. Good for him.
So, yeah, and the other thing I want before we sign off, if you have ever wondered if there should be a retraction of some of the retired numbers, and what qualifies as being a player to have your number retired, anything from the Strike Zone and I teaming up tomorrow to break that all down, where
Ooh.
we're going to decide who gets to keep their retired number and who has it taken back because they just not reach our qualifications. So tune in for that tomorrow
That's a really
at 10
good
o'clock.
one, man.
So we are going after, obviously, we're not going to be questioning Babe Ruth, but they're all we are not that dumb. But we're going to be breaking that down tomorrow to finish our discussion from earlier in the year. We decided to put it into its own show. So we're finally going to be getting that under the way for the holiday, just as we planned it. So tune in tomorrow morning for that. It should be a very fun discussion. 10 a.m. So look for that. Hit that notification bell. Hit that subscription button. Hit the like button. Share this out. And as I always say, wear your pinstripes of pride and play hard.